So this is about storytelling and the art of storytelling. And at the end of the day, we all have a story to tell, right? From the clothes we wear, the music we listen to, the cars we drive, the house we live in, the people that we interact with, everything and everyone has a story to tell. So let me get to know you a little bit. How many developers do we have here? Okay. How many designers do we have here? Wow. Wow, that's great. So how many people here are named Chris? I apologize for my next statement. I don't mean to offend. But as I grew up, I had a friend, as most of us do, that was hard to get rid of. That person that always sort of tagged along, right? And his name was Chris. The only person that can get away with calling me Chris and not Christian is my grandmother. So in fact, this story actually has followed me for a long time. In fact, does everyone know what an anagram is? Right? You take a word or a sentence and you take the letters and you rearrange them and it creates another word or another sentence, right? So the anagram for Christian is anti-Chris. So there's a little note, a little story about myself. So I am a storyteller. I am a designer. I got my background in print design and really just happened to get into interaction design along the way. And as a designer, the thing that I think is so absolutely critical is being able to tell great stories. And really, at the end of the day, all of us collectively are storytellers. From the designers, developers, business owners, managers, we all tell stories.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? No!
How many passes?
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
So people are looking to people like you and I to tell their story in very unique and engaging ways. It might be a story that's been told before, but maybe from a new perspective, new technology, a new direction. But it's our charge as developers and designers to be able to find those unique narratives within a story that potentially exists already, to be able to tell it in a unique and engaging way. Potentially, like the video showed, show them things that they're not even looking for. So, this is the art of storytelling. So the anatomy of a story. This sort of takes us back years, I'm sure, to English 101, when we start taking a look at what really makes up a great story. So there's 4 major elements across the board that makes up a great, compelling story. What's the first one? What's one of the 4 must-haves of any great story? You're right, a lead character. The lead character in a story. Who is this? Luke Skywalker. What's the second one? So you got the lead character in a story. You do have the antagonist, but the second one is ambition, right? So now we've got the lead character. Then we give that lead character sort of an ambition, sort of a goal, something to attain to. What movie is this? Jaws. And then with ambition comes conflict. Movie? 300. Ripped abs, yes. Lead character, ambition, conflict, and resolution. Right, so it's coming back to you now. Your English teachers would be proud. Movie, Transformers. Lead character, ambition, conflict, and resolution. These are the 4 must-haves of any great story. From the Stephen Kings, who write thousands and thousands of pages of a book, to people that are screenwriters, movie producers, all the way down now to what developers and designers are doing. Quite independent of medium. So let's dive into these 4 characteristics. So let's look at the lead character. The lead character really is who are they? What's their backstory? So for the first 45 minutes or so of Star Wars, we get this glimpse of a character named Luke Skywalker. And you know after a while that his parents aren't alive anymore. He's living with his aunt and uncle, someplace completely different than what he grew up in, with people that he didn't grow up with. His mom and dad are gone. You start uncovering that piece of the narrative for the first half hour to 35 minutes of this movie. So we start to get a glimpse to his backstory. But it really gives insight into their personality and who they are. And what the great writers, the great cinematographers, the great producers of the world, what they're trying to do is give you empathy towards this lead character. Why they do what they do. So you can fall in love with this lead character or hate the lead character. It is all about that backstory. But it also helps us understand their decision making and the actions that they are going to take. So after a while, when Luke Skywalker eventually confronts Darth Vader, you start understanding that backstory. You get to understand why this is happening. His decision-making process, the actions now actually make sense because you're connected to this lead character in some way, shape, or form. So then we get into ambition. Now with this movie, there's sort of a lot going on in this poor little seaside port who's being devoured by this great white shark. But ambition really is what's their goal. So we have this lead character of our story, of the narrative being told. And now that gives us the ambition. Now you know why Luke Skywalker and what he has to do, what he has to accomplish. You're intimately connected with the sheriff now because of events that have happened early on in the story. So now you're understanding so much more than you did in the beginning. You have empathy towards this lead character or this group of characters. We now understand what their goal is, and we understand that pretty intimately. And ambition really gives us the ultimate view into the tension that exists. So as us, and for us, designers and developers, I'm now going to start interchanging the word lead character with user. Because we have to have empathy for the people that are actually utilizing the stuff that we're building. We're not just doing it to build good code, even though that's part of the story. We're not building it to be just beautiful pictures and pixie dust, even though that's part of the story. We're building it for our clients. We're building it for that end user who is going to be using the stuff that we collectively are designing. So with ambition, it really gives us that desire. What's sort of in their heart, why are they doing these kind of things? The determination, the motivations of their actions. But ultimately, it gives us a purpose. So now when we go in, we start asking the questions of our lead characters of our stories, our users, we understand their actions. their motivations, the things that get them up in the morning, the things that are hard with working with similar applications. We start uncovering the story that they live within every single day in order for us to help them, to make that experience better. And then we get conflict. I remember in this movie, and it also happened in several other of my favorite movies, but 300, when you hear the beating of the drums, but you can't see the army, but you see the 300 guys just sort of in anticipation of knowing what is coming. You hear the sound. You just know something bad is going to happen. And the tension that they're living and existing in right then and there in that moment. But conflict is that roadblock to progress. They're trying to do something. They're trying to defend their voice, their story, their generation, their whole entire history. And there's a roadblock. There's something there that is stopping them. And along the way, we as designers and developers have conflict every single day. Within our projects, within the way that we're coding, within the way that we're designing, the interactions that we're having with each other, with our clients, with the end users, there is always some kind of tension that does exist. But here's three things. Here's three things that are really key. IDEO came up with these three principles, which I think are absolutely spot on. Is it viable, feasible, and desirable? So when we look at designing an application or an experience, the questions that we ask is it viable? So after we sit down with the end users and start uncovering the story that they're wanting to get out of this application, is this something that the market's ready for, that they're ready for? Is this something that is going to change the way that they work? Is it a viable solution for our target market? Is it feasible? When we look at what we're trying to design and develop, is it feasible? I call this the avatar effect. And the reason I do that is because 14 years ago, James Cameron had a freaking great idea. But he put it in a drawer for 14 years until that story was feasible. Because back then, technically, you couldn't do what he had in his head. But then he slowly pulled the drawer open years ago to say, now's the time. So is it feasible? And in our world, it's really all based around technology. What's happening? Can technology support what we're trying to do? Can it support the story that we're telling and how we actually want to unfold that story? And then my favorite, desirability. Do people want to come back? How many people have actually been to a movie and went back and saw it again? How many people have actually walked out of a movie? Is it desirable? From a tangible book that I sit in bed every night and read, do I want to finish it or is it a waste of my time? The movie that I'm taking my daughters to go see, would I go see it again? The applications that I'm building on a day-to-day basis, are these applications that people will want to come back and use? Are they applications that they will tell their friends about? In a good way or a bad way? Are they desirable? But then you have resolution. Now, resolution isn't the end of the story. It's the outcome of the conflict. As we have so aptly known over the last several years with the likes of, well, the new movie now, which is Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know what part they're on, or Jason and Freddy Krueger and, you know, all of these movies that have the sequels, right? People will come back time and time again to view these. So the resolution isn't a stopping point. It's time for phase 2, right? All of these types of projects have different phases. And the success of a project like this, in anything that we do, is based on, do we really truly understand the end user? Do we understand the ambition, what their goals are for this application, and can we help them get there? What kind of conflicts exist? And the things about conflict, it's not just about technical, but conflict is also financial. Inside the feasibility statement, is it viable? Yes. Is it desirable? Yes. But technically, we can't really take care of that right now. Or financially, we can't take care of that right now. So there's a lot of aspects to it. But at the end, the resolution is your ability to go and readdress some of these issues that were potentially roadblocks along the way. So it's just purely the outcome. And what it does is it brings clarity to the overall story that's trying to be told. At the end of any epic adventure, any story, again, is it worth coming back for? Is phase 2 make sense? But also, it should bring clarity. When you set it in front of the user, they should say, yeah, you guys nailed it. You understood me. You understood our market. You understand the business problems that needed to be solved. It brings clarity to the whole entire story. But the big thing is, and I keep on pounding this over and over and over again, and everyone I meet, designers or developers, is what you're doing worth coming back for? If not, then what are you doing? And why are you doing it? It usually stops people in their tracks a little bit and makes them evaluate what they are doing. Are they looking at trends in the industry? Are they following interesting patterns that have existed before? Are they continuously learning, or are they not? Why will people not come back? There's a lot of different issues. But I challenge you now, in the narrative that you're trying to tell, the stories that you're developing for your customers and your clients or your businesses, are they intuitive? Are they easy? Do people understand it? Does it hit the mark? Will people come back time and time again to use what you're offering? And time again, throughout history, we've seen people and products challenge the way that we think about products, about services, about the way we think about things. Who had like the original Atari growing up? A lot of you. So I remember playing Pitfall and this dungeon game that had this dragon, and when I actually saw the dragon for the first time, it was made literally out of green squares. And at that time, they didn't call them pixels. They were just green blocks. And here I am saying, it's never going to get any better than this. This is absolutely amazing. And we were addicted. I mean, it was like you couldn't, I mean, it was 85 degrees outside on a summer day, and we were in the basement for hours on hours just playing these games that couldn't get any better than that. Well, fast forward years, and now you have the likes of a World of Warcraft, Xbox 360, where now you're totally interacting online in real time with your neighbors, with your friends, with people in different countries, gaming in environments that are hyper real, and the social interaction is so in your face. Even the likes of Nike are trying to figure out, sort of like the Truman Show. When they're filming Truman, you see advertisements behind him, but he's not really aware of them. We're not really aware that that's what they're doing, but they're advertising in this sort of virtual kind of world. The likes of Apple and Nike and others are trying to figure out how can they put their brands within these worlds that aren't banners, that are just part of the submersive story that the gaming world is trying to tell. It's absolutely amazing. Okay. So, not here to debate the validity of who this guy is, Steve Jobs, Apple, but one thing that cannot be overlooked is the impact that this company has had on the way that we view and interact with our world on a daily basis. When I got my first cell phone, literally, this is my first cell phone. In fact, I always got made fun of because I was the only person left on the face of the earth that didn't have a cell phone. I was like, well, you know where I live and you know where I work, so I don't need a cell phone. Just call me. But when I got a cell phone, it completely reshaped the way that I thought a cell phone should operate, should look like, should work. And some of their initial campaigns about think different, they do it time and time and time again. They switch our perceptions of what we think something should behave like, something should look like. And it happened again recently. Giving us a tool like this has existed for years. Tablet PCs have been around forever. But when Apple did it, they made us think differently about how we interact with those tablets, what we can do on those tablets, the interactions that we can have with those tablets, what it can do for our businesses, what it can do for an industry. In fact, when you look at the iPhone, they were not even in the telecom vertical market, and they ran over most of the people that have been there for a really, really long time. Their mantra is, there's a better way. When I was really young, getting a computer, there was an application on there that completely inspired the reason I'm here today. And that was a little product that most of you might know, Photoshop. When I saw Photoshop and what it could do, I still get goosebumps thinking about what it did for me. It gave me the ability to show people things that were in my head in ways that I never had the tools or means to do before. It was an application, a software that made me be able to think out loud visually and show people that. Again, in a way that I never was able to do before. And this timeline, if I look back at this timeline, it's absolutely amazing just looking at the boxes, because it brings me back to high school. Like, oh my gosh, I remember when I had that box. And I vividly remember the designs. I can't even call them designs at that point. What I was doing at that time. So the progression. But one thing that you will notice is the toolbar right here. The thing about Adobe and Photoshop, consistent. Because it was all about the service that they were providing me. They understood what I needed, how I would interact with their software, the things that I could do with it. And if you look at that toolbar, not a whole lot has changed. They've been consistent. A lot of enhancements that talk to, again, why I'm here today. But over time, it's just a story that they've been telling to designers time and time again. That narrative has not changed. Physical, intellectual, and emotional. When you look throughout history at some of the greatest product designers, from furniture to automotive to agencies, there are three main components that exist time and time again. There is a physical aspect to their product. There's a physical aspect to what we do, because what we do can live and breathe on not just a desktop, but a kiosk, a watch, a phone, a mobile device. So what we do is tangible. But then there's that intellectual component to this, the psychology of just being human. And we always come to the table with preconceived notions of what something should be. But all great product designers and developers throughout history have said there is a better way. And it totally reverses the way that we think it should be. Those are the people that are making the impact. And then the thing that I completely connect with is the emotional engagement. So when you have the tangible along with the intellectual, you have something so special that it becomes emotionally engaging to the user, where what they now have in their hands is something that they desire, that they'll tell their friends about because they are emotionally connected to what we are delivering. Great brands of the world have an impressive grasp of the human condition. They have a grasp on the psychology of how we look at and interact with our world. So they target those neural pathways in order to elicit a desired reaction. And of course, here in Seattle, you can't go without mentioning Starbucks. Then we all go and tattoo Harley Davidson on our arms and drink Starbucks like good little addicts. It's a motorcycle. And it's just a cup of coffee. Oh, but for people that are emotionally attached to that product, they can tell the hum of a Harley engine a mile away. They will know if it's a Harley, if it's a Yamaha, a Suzuki, they will know. And when you walk into a Starbucks, it's almost like a sigh of relief walking in because it's familiar, it's comfortable, the smell, the design. It is done on purpose. Great brands of the world understand the human condition in such a way where they can target us and they can make us do what they want us to do. We collectively, all of us being designers, within our products have the ability to engage the user in such a way where they will click on that buy now button. They will go to step 2. They will tell friends about it. People look to us to help lead the way. Another way of saying that is the essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action, while reason leads to conclusions. So as product designers and developers here, when we emotionally attach our audience to the products that we're designing and developing and putting forth into the world, when we emotionally attach, or someone is emotionally attached to that, they will act upon it. They will click that button. They will proceed to step 2. they will tell their friends about it. So how about I just sort of tell another little story about a brand that I absolutely adore. Anyone know what brand of automotive this is? Audi. The Audi R8. Just look at the lines. Absolutely beautiful to me. The color, the scale, everything about it is just beautiful. I mean, just take a look at some of these images, from some of the more historical pieces to some of the more current. Even look at the engine. Most people don't even see the engine. A lot of people just go get their oil changed and engine fixed. They don't even pop the hood open. But look at how beautiful the engine is. Look at how beautiful the veneer is. Everything working in concert together. To me, it's absolutely stunningly beautiful piece of machinery. August Horsch is the gentleman that started Audi. And when he started Audi, there were 3 components of him wanting to start this company. The 3 components are design, innovation, and the joy of driving. Now this is where it gets really good, because guess what? We've talked about this already. Design. Design is about the physicality of that product. When August Horsch started this company, he said, I want to make something aesthetically beautiful. So it becomes tangible. It becomes designed, physical. Innovation is all about the intellectual. So when you talk about innovative products or innovative people, when you start talking about this one, innovation changed the way people viewed a car. He said, I want to change the way people look at a car, what their expectation of what a car is. And then the joy of driving. The joy of driving is all about the emotional attachment that someone has with the end product. So design, innovation, the joy of driving, which is the physical, intellectual, and the emotional. The 3 pieces of the pie. But I think Jay Leno sort of states it the best. He says the R8 is pure emotion, but you notice the real quality when you drive it. As designers and developers here, I am so intimately connected with this statement because it talks to the art and the science of the Audi. It talks to the art and science of what we do in application design, in interaction design. The reason Apple has been as successful as it has been is because it is not design and development. It's design and development together, sort of living and breathing as one entity. Not disparate entities, not siloed. One. Everything working together beautifully. Now, if I was to do a beautiful, beautiful design, and people are like, wow, that is fantastic. I love it. And then they click a button, and something unexpected happens, I've lost a customer. Doesn't matter how beautiful it is. Likewise, if you guys create beautiful code and it's functioning beautifully, and someone goes to the site or goes to the application and looks at it and says, wow, this looks really bad. I don't know if I want to invest my money in this product. You've lost an opportunity. So my counsel to everyone here is it is about the art and the science. And this image showcases it beautifully. It is that veneer working with that engine. And as Jay Leno said, it's pure emotion, yeah, but the real quality is when you drive it. So we're intimately connected visually of like, wow, that's connecting with me in some way. There's a beauty to it. But when you turn the engine on or when you click that button and it just works and that story is being told in such a way where it just makes sense, you gain and gain and gain customers. You gain clients. You gain someone that now becomes a brand advocate for your product, for your company, for this service that you're offering. Both coexisting together, the art and science. But once upon a time, every great story has a beginning. And at Universal Mind, what we do is we have, we call it a 4D approach, but really it's discovery, design, develop, and deploy. So this is sort of how we look at our book. This is how we look at our story. This is where we start. And where we start is what we call the discovery phase. This is really where the ideas become a strategic story. So in this phase, this is us sitting down. This is us chatting with the business owners, the stakeholders. This is where we're interviewing, potential end users. This is really starting to uncover the lead characters in our story. Who are they? What matters to them? What things would they consider to be a good experience? What's their threshold for change? We ask and ask and ask and ask over and over again tough questions. We have healthy tension with our clients, with the end users. We challenge them during this phase to try to uncover what they're trying to tell, what story they're trying to put forth. So here are some of those artifacts. This is the beginning of our narrative to try to make sense in our own head. If you would see our office, our UX office, it is wallpapered with things just like this. This is one piece of the puzzle for this one particular project. We go to the client with a long tube, with craft paper and a lot of sticky notes and a lot of markers. So it's sort of fun. It's like, preschool all over again. We color and draw like all day. But it's not just a day. It's over several days, potentially even a week, of just uncovering the story that our client is trying to get across, but also the end users and who they are. And we just plaster the walls and try to get them on the airplane. So this is one big, huge piece of paper that really is segmented towards one particular user. Even though for this particular project, there were 8 unique users for this application that we were designing. But this is really us getting to know you. So who's Amy? Where does she live? What kind of things make her day really good? What things make it really bad? So again, trying to get a little bit of empathy towards who these users are so we can sort of jump in their skin and sort of feel their pain. And then what we do is we sort of start formulating what we call a persona. Has everyone here heard of what a persona is? Right? A persona is somewhat of a fictitious character for that end user. And we're trying to, again, tell that story about. For this particular project, we had 8 persona documents put together, and it goes through sort of their day in the life of who this character is. Questions that we're asking of them. So what do they aspire to be, life goals, their comfort with technology and change. And so this document just starts to formalize this particular persona. And then what we do is we take sort of that collection of lead characters sort of in our story, and we do this vertical chart that sort of gives us sort of that snapshot of who they are, and actually within the process, the application that we're building, where are the overlaps? Where's the crossovers between these different users? Are there patterns that exist between these separate users? And we have dialogue about that. And then we get into sort of that design phase. And that design phase is where the story really becomes visible. So this is where we take our sketches and now we start building a little bit upon that. So again, more sketches, higher level wireframes, getting into that. This is where we start really the graphic user interface of, okay, how can this thing, look? What's the aesthetic to this thing? So this is, for me, this is sort of my sweet spot. I'm a very visual person. So for me, getting into sort of this design phase is really exciting for me, especially if we have a good roadmap of who we're designing it for, because it seems like the decisions that I make are so much more clear, understanding who I'm designing this application for. And then we get into the vision prototype within this phase as well. And the vision prototype is really sort of a low-level click-through of the application. Even within wireframes, there is always that potential of actually showing and having end users interact with wireframes. So we can get them a sense of like, this is where we're headed. Poke holes through it if you can. Tell us what your overall experience is. Is it easy? Is it difficult? What are the pitfalls that we might run into? So again, continuously interacting with our client and end users. And then we get into the development stage where the story really becomes tangible for everybody. So this is where your world, architectural framework and integration and all of that kind of stuff sort of lives and breathes. Now within that discovery phase, it's not typically just UX individuals. We will also have developers and business strategists sitting side by side with designers as well, so everyone is on the same page. The story that they're hearing is the same story that we're hearing, which is absolutely critical. So even during this development phase, this isn't the first time that the developers have actually seen this. They have an intimate understanding of the application, the story that's being told, the direction that we're heading. They know the conflict, if it's technical. So they've been sort of uncovering that as well along the way. And then we get into the deploy. This is where the story is in use. This is sort of where we take our baby and just let it out into the world. Sometimes with a tear because we know it's not perfect. But again, it's another opportunity to get feedback, through the beta builds, testing and refining, training, tracking. This is the deployment phase, which is sort of that resolution, right? So we've gone through sort of the lead character and the things that they go through all the way to resolution. And this gives us the ability to really look at how it's being adopted, our child into the community that we've built it for. How are people interacting with it? What are the things that we could be collecting and doing differently for a phase 2 approach for this application? And then what we do is any great poet, they have a collection, they have an anthology of the things that they've worked on throughout their career, right? So what we do is we actually have an anthology where developers are highly, what they do is they take everything through the course of the development of the application, and it becomes really a guide, a collection of not only assets, but user stories and everything that would be paramount to that application and how it looks, how it lives and breathes, all the data models, everything in a vocabulary that makes sense. So my challenge to everybody here today is become design anthropologists. you're not just developers. And for some of you, you're not just designers. We all have to look at the culture. We have to see what's going on. We have to understand the human condition. You shouldn't be sitting behind the computer for 12 hours a day, banging on the keyboard just to write good code. Do you know who you're writing that code for? Do you know what that end result should be? Are you guys looking at trends in technology, in what's happening, how people are using the technology? Technology that's actually not even here yet, but it's coming. Are you studying it? Are you understanding it? For designers, are we looking at historical perspective of where we've been in design? Why does this work and that not work? Are we looking at cultures? Are we looking at individuals? It's this holistic approach to what we do. It's why Audi's been a success. It's why Apple's been successful. It's why Adobe has been successful. Because they don't have a narrow focus of we're just designers or we're just gonna, do code. They've been successful because they've bridged that gap of design and development, and it is truly the art and science of the experience. How many people, how many developers here actually interact with designers on a daily basis? Pretty few. How many designers interact with developers on a daily basis? 3, 4. Now you see what I'm talking about. The left hand has to know what the right hand's doing in order to make that experience worth coming back for. So story, and I'll wrap it up. Story is all about people. And it's somewhat a cliche to say that, but we design and develop every day for people to use what we're doing, our service, our application, our software, it doesn't matter. It is all about people. But it is also how the story unfolds that truly matters. What is that experience that we're trying to get? What new technologies are existing right now to be able to help tell that story in unique and engaging ways? So my question to you right now is, what is your story? How do people perceive you inside the organization? How do your employees look at you if you're a business owner? How does your customers view the applications and software and things that you put out? What is your story, and how can you change that for the better? How can you challenge yourself? And my story continues under the influence of design or at universalmind.com. So I appreciate your attention. Thank you.